My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional story begins with an unexpected discovery that quietly changes the direction of two lives. Stay until the very end, because what unfolds is not a prediction about your future or a hidden message about someone you have not yet met. It is an inspirational story about character, faith, personal growth, and how genuine admiration is often born from the quiet qualities people carry within their hearts rather than from outward appearances. The story begins on an ordinary afternoon when life seemed to follow its familiar rhythm. The streets were filled with people hurrying to work, children laughed as they walked home from school, and the golden sunlight reflected gently across the windows of nearby homes. Somewhere in that busy world lived the person who would one day become the future spouse in this fictional story. They had spent years imagining the kind of person they hoped to meet someday. Like many people, they once believed happiness depended upon finding someone with the perfect appearance, impressive accomplishments, or exciting lifestyle. Yet as life continued teaching its quiet lessons, those expectations slowly began to change. Months earlier, difficult experiences had reshaped the way they viewed relationships. Friendships built only upon appearances had faded. Conversations lacking honesty had quietly come to an end. Through those experiences, they learned that lasting relationships require something much deeper than temporary excitement. They began hoping not for perfection, but for someone whose heart reflected kindness, humility, patience, honesty, and compassion. They quietly prayed that if such a person ever entered their life, they would recognize those qualities before anything else. My beloved child, don't skip this part, because the emotional heart of this fictional story begins here. One evening, while spending time with close friends, someone began sharing stories about people who had quietly made a positive difference within the community. They spoke about an individual who regularly volunteered without seeking recognition, encouraged others during difficult seasons, treated strangers with respect, and remained patient even when life became challenging. Listening carefully, the future spouse in this story became deeply curious. They finally asked, "Who is this person everyone keeps describing?" A gentle smile appeared across the room as someone answered, "The most remarkable thing about them isn't what they accomplish. It's the kind of person they choose to be every single day." Those words lingered in their thoughts long after the conversation ended. Over the following weeks, they continued hearing similar stories. One neighbor spoke about receiving unexpected encouragement during a difficult season. Another described simple acts of generosity that had quietly restored hope. A teacher explained how one thoughtful conversation had inspired greater confidence in a struggling student. None of these stories described fame, wealth, or extraordinary achievements. Instead, they described someone whose everyday choices consistently reflected integrity and compassion. Slowly, admiration began growing, not because of outward success, but because of the quiet influence one faithful life had upon so many others. One peaceful morning, while walking through the local park beneath blooming trees, they witnessed something that brought every story together. An elderly stranger accidentally dropped several bags of groceries. Before anyone else could react, the person whose kindness had become the subject of so many conversations calmly stepped forward to help. They spoke gently, carried every bag without expecting recognition, wished the elderly neighbor well, and quietly continued their walk. There were no dramatic speeches, no audience applauding, and no desire for attention. It was simply another ordinary act of kindness performed with genuine humility. Watching from a distance, the future spouse quietly smiled. At that moment, they understood why so many people respected that individual. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because this fictional story now reveals one of its deepest truths. In this story, what captured another person's heart was never appearance, popularity, or status. It was character. Honest words spoken with gentleness. Patience offered during difficult conversations. Forgiveness extended without keeping score. Compassion shown to people who could offer nothing in return. Those qualities became far more beautiful than anything the world usually celebrates. They realized that genuine admiration grows strongest wherever kindness becomes a daily habit. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon that evening, they quietly reflected on everything they had learned. They no longer searched for someone who appeared perfect. They hoped to build a future with someone whose actions consistently reflected love, humility, generosity, and truth. In this fictional story, what they experienced as God's guidance was not revealing the identity of a future spouse. It was gently shaping their own heart to recognize lasting character instead of temporary appearances. That quiet transformation became the beginning of a completely different understanding of love. My beloved child, don't skip these closing words, because the next chapter of this fictional journey will reveal how an unexpected meeting allows both people to discover that the greatest attraction is not found in outward appearance alone, but in two hearts that have quietly grown through faith, integrity, compassion, patience, and hope during life's ordinary seasons. My beloved child, don't skip this chapter, because in this fictional story, the quiet admiration that began through stories is about to grow through an unexpected meeting. Listen carefully, because some of life's most meaningful moments do not arrive with dramatic announcements. They begin with ordinary conversations, simple acts of kindness, and hearts that have been quietly prepared through seasons of growth. This is not a prediction about your life or your future. It is a fictional story about faith, character, respect, and discovering that lasting relationships are built on who people truly are rather than who they appear to be. Several weeks passed after hearing so many encouraging stories. Life continued moving at its familiar pace. Morning sunlight filled the streets, people hurried to work, children filled playgrounds with laughter, and neighbors greeted one another with friendly smiles. The future spouse in this story remained busy with everyday responsibilities, yet the memory of those conversations never completely faded. They found themselves wondering how someone could quietly influence so many lives without ever seeking attention. Instead of becoming curious about appearance or success, they became curious about character. They wanted to understand how one person's ordinary choices had inspired so much respect within the community. One Saturday morning, a charity event brought neighbors together to renovate a small public garden that had become neglected over the years. Volunteers arrived carrying gardening tools, paintbrushes, and flower seedlings. Families worked side by side. Children watered newly planted flowers, and elderly residents shared stories while watching the transformation unfold. It was a simple community project, yet it reflected something beautiful. People from different backgrounds had gathered for one purpose: to leave the place better than they found it. My beloved child, don't skip this part, because the emotional heart of this fictional story begins here. While arranging flowers near one of the garden paths, the future spouse quietly noticed the person everyone had been describing. There was nothing dramatic about the moment. No grand introduction. No perfect music playing in the background. Instead, they observed someone patiently helping an elderly volunteer lift heavy boxes, encouraging a nervous child whose planting had not gone as planned, and thanking every volunteer for their effort before quietly returning to work. Every action reflected the same kindness people had spoken about. Watching from a distance, they realized something unexpected. True character remains the same whether anyone is watching or not. As the afternoon continued, a sudden summer shower surprised everyone. Volunteers hurried to protect tools, flowers, and supplies from the rain. Instead of becoming frustrated, laughter filled the garden as everyone worked together beneath the falling rain. The person at the center of the story calmly helped organize everything, making sure older volunteers found shelter before thinking about themselves. The future spouse quietly smiled, recognizing that compassion becomes most visible during unexpected moments. They understood why admiration had continued growing within their own heart. It was not because someone appeared extraordinary. It was because ordinary situations consistently revealed extraordinary integrity. Later that day, volunteers gathered beneath a covered pavilion while warm drinks were shared among everyone present. Friendly conversations naturally began. For the first time, the future spouse and the person they had heard so much about found themselves sitting across from one another. The discussion remained simple. They spoke about family traditions, favorite books, community service, childhood memories, and the importance of encouraging others through difficult seasons. There were no attempts to impress one another. Both listened carefully before speaking. Both showed genuine interest in understanding rather than simply being understood. By the time the conversation ended, each walked away grateful, not because they had found certainty about the future, but because they had discovered someone whose values reflected their own. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because this fictional story now shares one of its deepest truths. Lasting admiration is rarely built upon dramatic first impressions. It grows through repeated moments of honesty, humility, patience, generosity, and quiet faithfulness. In this story, what they experienced as God's guidance was not revealing a predetermined future. It was gently shaping two people into individuals who recognized goodness, respected integrity, and appreciated compassion wherever they encountered it. Their greatest discovery was not another person's appearance. It was another person's heart. As another sunrise filled the horizon with beautiful shades of gold, blue, and soft crimson, both quietly reflected on the previous day's events. Neither rushed ahead with expectations. Instead, both felt thankful for meeting someone whose actions reflected the same values they hoped to practice within their own life. They understood that every meaningful relationship begins not with perfection, but with mutual respect, honest conversations, patient understanding, and shared commitment to becoming kinder human beings. My beloved child, don't skip these closing words, because the next chapter of this fictional journey will reveal how one unexpected conversation with family changes both hearts forever, reminding us that the strongest relationships are not built by chance alone but through lives shaped by integrity, compassion, humility, faith, and enduring hope. My beloved child, don't skip this chapter, because in this fictional story, the unexpected meeting that seemed so ordinary is about to leave both hearts thinking about one another long after the day has ended. Listen carefully, because some of life's most meaningful connections do not begin with dramatic promises or extraordinary events. They begin with respect, quiet conversations, shared values, and the simple realization that another person sees the world with the same kindness you hope to live by. This is not a prediction about your life or your future. It is a fictional story about faith, character, patience, and discovering that lasting admiration grows through everyday moments. The morning after the community project, both quietly returned to their normal routines. Work continued, responsibilities filled the day, and life moved forward as it always had. Yet something felt different. Neither could explain exactly why, but each found themselves remembering the conversation they had shared beneath the pavilion after the summer rain. It had not been filled with dramatic declarations or impossible promises. Instead, it had been filled with thoughtful questions, genuine listening, and mutual respect. Those simple moments lingered because they reflected something increasingly rare, a conversation where both people felt seen, heard, and appreciated without needing to pretend to be someone else. Later that week, another community gathering was organized to celebrate the successful restoration of the public garden. Families brought homemade meals, musicians played gentle songs beneath colorful lights, and children proudly showed visitors the flowers they had planted with their own hands. As people arrived throughout the evening, the future spouse quietly noticed the familiar face once again. This time, instead of simply observing from a distance, they walked over with a warm smile and expressed gratitude for all the work that had helped bring the community together. The response was humble. There was no desire for praise, only appreciation that so many people had worked together with generosity and hope. My beloved child, don't skip this part, because the emotional heart of this fictional story begins here. As the evening continued, the two found themselves walking slowly through the garden paths while lanterns illuminated the flowers planted only weeks earlier. Their conversation moved naturally from favorite childhood memories to the lessons life had quietly taught them. One admitted that difficult seasons had revealed the importance of patience. The other shared that disappointment had taught the value of forgiveness. Neither tried to impress the other with achievements or possessions. Instead, they spoke honestly about growth, mistakes, gratitude, and the people who had helped shape their character. With every passing minute, admiration quietly deepened, not because either person appeared perfect, but because both valued sincerity above appearances. Before the evening ended, an elderly volunteer who had worked alongside them during the restoration project gently approached. Smiling warmly, the volunteer said, "The strongest gardens are not the ones that bloom overnight. They become beautiful because someone faithfully cares for them every day." After a brief pause, the volunteer added, "Relationships are very much the same." Those gentle words remained with both of them long after the gathering ended. Walking home beneath the stars, they realized that meaningful connections cannot be rushed. Like the flowers surrounding them, they grow strongest where patience, trust, kindness, and steady care are faithfully practiced. Over the following weeks, they crossed paths several more times while serving within the community. Sometimes they organized food drives together. Other times they visited elderly neighbors or helped children prepare for school events. With every shared experience, one truth became clearer. character remains consistent whether life is easy or difficult. They witnessed one another responding to challenges with humility, treating every person with respect regardless of background, and offering encouragement whenever someone needed hope. Those ordinary moments quietly built a foundation far stronger than excitement alone ever could. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because this fictional story now shares one of its deepest truths. Lasting admiration grows whenever two people continue choosing honesty over appearances, generosity over selfishness, patience over frustration, and compassion over judgment. In this story, what they experienced as God's guidance was not revealing a guaranteed future. It was gently preparing two hearts to recognize qualities that remain valuable through every changing season of life. The greatest attraction was never outward appearance. It was the peaceful confidence that comes from living with integrity and treating others with genuine kindness. As another sunrise painted the horizon with brilliant shades of gold, soft blue, and crimson, both welcomed the new day carrying quiet gratitude. They no longer wondered why their conversations felt so meaningful. They understood that when two people are committed to growing in wisdom, humility, faith, and compassion, even ordinary moments become extraordinary memories. Whatever tomorrow might bring, they had already discovered something precious, a friendship rooted in mutual respect, sincere encouragement, and hearts that continued choosing goodness every single day. My beloved child, don't skip these closing words, because the next chapter of this fictional journey will reveal how an unexpected conversation with family changes everything, reminding both hearts that the strongest relationships are built not on perfect timing, but on trust, shared values, patient love, and unwavering integrity. My beloved child, don't skip this chapter, because in this fictional story, two lives that have quietly grown through different seasons are about to discover that the strongest connections begin with mutual respect rather than perfect timing. Listen carefully, because what happens next is not a prediction about your future. It is a fictional story about character, faith, patience, and learning that genuine love grows where trust is patiently cultivated. Several weeks passed after their first meaningful conversation in the community garden. Life continued with its ordinary routines. The mornings were filled with work and responsibilities, afternoons with small acts of service, and evenings with quiet reflection. Yet every now and then, both found themselves remembering the conversations they had shared. It wasn't because of dramatic romance or extraordinary promises. It was because each had discovered something increasingly rare, a person who listened with genuine attention, spoke with honesty, and treated every individual with equal kindness regardless of who they were. One Saturday morning, the community organized a charity event to collect books, clothing, and school supplies for children preparing for a new school year. Volunteers arrived early, arranging tables and organizing donations while cheerful music played softly in the background. Families worked together, children eagerly sorted books, and older volunteers shared stories from years gone by. Amid the joyful activity, the two met once again. This time, the greeting felt natural, as though they were continuing a conversation that had never truly ended. My beloved child, don't skip this part, because the emotional heart of this fictional story begins here. During a quiet break beneath the shade of a large tree, they spoke about the dreams they carried for the future. Neither spoke about wealth or recognition. One hoped to build a home filled with peace, honesty, laughter, and kindness. The other shared a desire to create a family where every person felt heard, respected, and encouraged to become their best self. As they listened to one another, something quietly became clear. The qualities they had each been searching for were not found in grand achievements. They were revealed through shared values, gentle words, and everyday actions. Later that afternoon, an elderly teacher who had volunteered with the community for many years joined their conversation. Smiling warmly, the teacher quietly said, "People often ask what makes a relationship last. They expect me to mention perfect chemistry or perfect timing. But after many years, I have learned something different. Lasting relationships are built by two people who continue choosing patience when life becomes difficult, honesty when silence feels easier, forgiveness when pride asks them to hold on to hurt, and kindness when frustration begins to grow." Those words settled deeply into both hearts. As the event came to an end, they helped carry the final boxes into a small community center. Before leaving, they paused outside beneath a sky glowing with the colors of sunset. Neither rushed to define the future. Neither placed expectations upon the other. Instead, they simply thanked one another for the day's work and for the encouraging conversations they had shared. Walking home separately beneath the evening sky, both carried the same quiet realization. Sometimes the greatest gift is meeting someone whose character inspires you to continue becoming a better person yourself. Listen carefully, my beloved child. Because this fictional story now shares one of its deepest truths. In this story, what they experienced as God's guidance was not revealing that one specific future had already been decided. It was the quiet encouragement to become people capable of building healthy relationships through honesty, humility, compassion, and faithful love. The strongest foundation is not excitement alone. It is trust patiently earned through consistent actions and sincere hearts. As another sunrise filled the horizon with beautiful shades of gold and blue, both welcomed the day with renewed gratitude. They understood that meaningful relationships are never built in a single conversation. Like a carefully tended garden, they grow through steady care, thoughtful communication, mutual respect, and the willingness to keep learning together. Whatever the future might hold, they had already discovered something priceless: a friendship rooted in integrity, hope, and the quiet confidence that genuine character will always outshine appearances. My beloved child, don't skip these closing words, because the next chapter of this fictional journey will reveal how one heartfelt conversation with family helps both people understand that the greatest blessing is not simply finding someone special, but becoming the kind of person who can love faithfully, communicate honestly, and walk through every season of life with compassion and enduring hope. My beloved child, don't skip this chapter, because in this fictional story, the quiet friendship that has been growing through ordinary moments is about to be tested in a way that reveals the true strength of two hearts. Listen carefully, because meaningful relationships are not measured only by joyful days. They are revealed most clearly during moments that require patience, understanding, and compassion. This is not a prediction about your life or anyone else's. It is a fictional story about faith, character, family, and discovering that lasting love grows through trust rather than haste. As the seasons slowly changed, the friendship between the two continued to deepen. They did not spend every day together, nor did they constantly search for reasons to meet. Instead, they crossed paths naturally through community projects, family gatherings, and opportunities to serve others. Each meeting strengthened the quiet respect they already shared. They discovered that both valued honesty more than appearances, humility more than recognition, and kindness more than winning arguments. Little by little, they realized they were encouraging one another to become wiser, calmer, and more compassionate people. One afternoon, while helping organize supplies for a local charity event, an unexpected misunderstanding occurred. A scheduling mistake caused important deliveries to arrive late, leaving several volunteers frustrated. Some people quickly blamed others without knowing the full story. The atmosphere became tense as voices grew louder. Instead of joining the confusion, both quietly focused on solving the problem. They worked together, listened patiently to every volunteer, apologized whenever necessary, and reminded everyone that finding a solution mattered far more than assigning blame. Before long, the situation was peacefully resolved, and the event continued successfully. My beloved child, don't skip this part, because the emotional heart of this fictional story begins here. Later that evening, while walking through the now quiet community garden, the future spouse gently smiled and said, "Today taught me something important." Curious, the other person asked what they meant. They quietly replied, "I didn't admire you because everything went perfectly. I admired the way you treated people when everything became difficult." Those words brought a peaceful silence between them. They realized that true character is revealed not during comfortable moments, but during challenges that test patience, humility, and self-control. A few days later, the future spouse visited their parents for dinner. During the meal, the conversation naturally turned toward friendships, values, and the kind of future they hoped to build. With quiet gratitude, they began describing someone whose kindness had quietly impressed them over many months. They spoke about patience shown during disagreements, generosity offered without recognition, and integrity demonstrated through consistent actions. Their parents listened carefully before smiling warmly. One of them gently said, "If someone inspires you to become a kinder person yourself, never overlook that gift. The greatest relationships are built by two people who help each other grow." Those words remained in their heart long after the evening ended. Walking home beneath a sky filled with countless stars, they reflected on everything life had taught them. They realized that admiration built upon appearance often fades with time, but admiration built upon character continues growing through every changing season. They no longer searched for perfection. They simply appreciated the peaceful confidence that comes from knowing another person's words and actions consistently reflect honesty, respect, and compassion. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because this fictional story now reveals one of its deepest truths. In this story, what they experienced as God's guidance was not promising a certain future or guaranteeing a particular relationship. It was the gentle invitation to continue becoming people who value truth over pretense, forgiveness over resentment, patience over impulsiveness, and faithful love over temporary excitement. Those quiet choices prepared both hearts to build relationships capable of enduring life's many seasons. As another sunrise painted the horizon with brilliant shades of gold, blue, and soft crimson, they met once more while serving together in the community. Their conversations felt easier than ever before because trust had quietly grown through many ordinary experiences. Neither felt the need to pretend or impress. They simply appreciated one another's company, shared laughter, encouraged each other's dreams, and continued serving others with grateful hearts. Looking toward the bright morning sky, both silently recognized that the most beautiful journeys are often built one faithful step at a time. My beloved child, don't skip these closing words, because the next chapter of this fictional journey will reveal how one unexpected family conversation changes everything, helping both hearts understand that genuine love is not found by searching endlessly for perfection. It is discovered through shared values, faithful character, patient friendship, and a willingness to keep growing together with hope, integrity, and compassion. A future built on character. My beloved child, don't skip these final words, because every chapter of this fictional story has been leading to this peaceful conclusion. Listen carefully, because the greatest surprise was never that two people met. The greatest surprise was how quietly their hearts had been prepared long before they ever recognized one another. This is not a prediction about your life or your future. It is a fictional story about faith, hope, character, and the lasting beauty of relationships built on trust rather than appearances. As another spring arrived, the community gathered to celebrate the completion of several projects they had worked on throughout the year. Families filled the town square with laughter, children played beneath colorful banners, musicians filled the air with gentle melodies, and neighbors greeted one another like old friends. Looking around, both quietly realized how much life had changed since the day they first met while serving others. Their friendship had never been rushed. It had grown naturally through countless ordinary moments, helping those in need, encouraging one another through challenges, and choosing honesty whenever difficult conversations became necessary. That afternoon, they found themselves walking through the same garden where many of their conversations had begun. The flowers planted months before were now blooming beautifully, and the young trees had grown stronger with every passing season. Smiling softly, one of them said, "When we first met, I thought was looking for the perfect person. Now I understand something much greater. I was learning how to become a better person." The other smiled with quiet gratitude and replied, "The greatest gift we've given each other has never been perfection. It's the encouragement to keep growing with kindness, patience, and truth." Their words carried no pressure and no unrealistic promises, only mutual respect and sincere appreciation. As the evening drew to a close, an elderly neighbor who had watched both of them serve the community over many months quietly approached. With a warm smile, the neighbor gently said, "The happiest relationships I've ever witnessed were never built upon excitement alone. They were built by two people who never stopped treating each other with kindness, even after the excitement became everyday life." Those simple words remained with them long after the stars filled the night sky. They understood that genuine love is revealed through ordinary moments, sharing burdens, celebrating small victories, listening patiently, forgiving quickly, and encouraging one another to become better with each passing year. Listen carefully, my beloved child, because this fictional story now shares its final truth. In this story, what they experienced as God's guidance was never about guaranteeing a particular outcome or revealing a predetermined future. It was the gentle invitation to become people whose lives reflected honesty, humility, generosity, faithfulness, and compassion. Whether friendships, family relationships, or future marriages, every meaningful connection grows stronger when both hearts continue choosing truth over fear, service over selfishness, and hope over despair. That quiet transformation became the greatest blessing of all. As the first light of a brand new morning stretched across the horizon, the garden glowed beneath warm shades of gold and blue. Birds welcomed the sunrise while a gentle breeze carried the fragrance of blooming flowers planted months before. Standing together beneath those growing trees, they smiled with peaceful hearts. They no longer worried about controlling every detail of tomorrow. They had learned that the strongest future is built through faithful choices made today. Every kind word mattered. Every act of forgiveness mattered. Every moment of patience mattered. Those ordinary decisions quietly became the foundation of an extraordinary life. My beloved child, remember these final words as this fictional journey comes to its close. Never measure love by dramatic moments alone. Measure it by the peace it brings, the respect it protects, the honesty it encourages, and the kindness it continues to show when life becomes difficult. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to become more compassionate, more patient, more grateful, and more faithful to the values that truly matter. And so this fictional story reaches its beautiful ending. The friendship that began through simple acts of service became a relationship rooted in trust. The admiration that first grew through stories became deeper through shared experiences. The future they once imagined separately slowly became a journey they were willing to walk together, with humility, honesty, courage, and hope. As the morning sun rose higher above the horizon, they stepped forward with grateful hearts, knowing that the greatest blessing was never finding someone who seemed perfect. It was becoming two people who chose to love with integrity, encourage one another with compassion, and build a future one faithful day at a time. And with that peaceful realization, one story ended, while a new chapter filled with purpose, gratitude, and enduring hope was only just beginning.